Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Gift of Gaming podcast. At a time where the PlayStation 5 is halfway through its mediocre life cycle, Xbox is having a bit of a downturn, and we're all just waiting for the Nintendo Switch 2. It's time to reminisce about the better times of video game consoles and talk about the ones we love the most on this week's episode of the Gift of Gaming podcast. It's me, your host, Darren Wade, and it is a full house. Ladies and gentlemen, we got 2 kings and 3 queens. Well, actually, there's only 4 people here, but it's a full house for the podcast. Today, I'm joined by the podcast's most critical thinker, Craig the Critical Nolan. Craig, how are you?
How you doing, Darren? Great to be here.
Good, yeah. Good to have you. I'm also joined by the master tactician himself, Colm Nolan.
Thanks for having me, Darren. Pleasure to be here.
I just figured it's about time you had a name. And if you've got some gaming symptoms, you need to talk to the gaming doctor. It's Dr. Daniel. Daniel, how are you?
I'll take it. Thank you very much.
Be back. That one needs a bit of work. I'm sorry.
No worries. It's only my 3rd time. So
I could stand to be more critical if you could throw that in next time.
Okay, yeah, you should think you got it, Craig. Daniel, it has been a while since you've been on the podcast. Tell me, what video games have you been playing?
Well, I've gone back a little bit to The Witcher 3, but recently I've picked up Tunic, which is a really cute indie game.
Nice. That was free on the PlayStation thing recently. Yeah.
And I played it before because it was on the Game Pass, and now that it popped on the PlayStation free games, I just decided to pick it up again, and it's really cute. And you're a little fox, and it's like a Zelda-esque, Dark Soul-esque. Yeah, it's
nice.
really cute.
You're a fox.
But you're a tiny fox. How can you not play a tiny fox?
It is the cutest.
Stray is a game, so I definitely played that over Stray.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy Stray so much.
Stray doesn't have a little sword and shield, though.
Yeah, you're just a cat. I mean, sorry for all the cat lovers, whatever.
Yeah. Hey, well, I got 2 cats, bro.
Yeah, I know.
Nice cats.
I know what I said.
Okay. All right. Craig, have you been playing anything apart from
since
golf?
Since the last episode, yes. I went home, I took out my Wii U, and I went home to my parents' house, and I grabbed Little King Story on the Wii, and I've put about 20 hours into that since we last spoke.
I was down yours the other night and you showed it to me, and it looks like it's a pretty sweet game.
You know, just talking about it for so long last week just made me instantly want to play it, and I just couldn't help myself. And I'm 20 hours in and just having a great time with it. It's
nice.
Just one of those gems, you know.
Yeah, and
shame more people didn't get to play it.
Yeah, and the Steam reviews we were all saying, or you pointed out that they weren't great.
They weren't good, no.
Yeah.
There's loads of things wrong with it, to the point where I was like, nah, I'm just going to play the original. And the original is still perfect. Like, it just doesn't have, like, HD visuals.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine any sort of patchwork would make it look great, regardless of how good Steam is.
Mm-hmm. So if anyone's looking to play that, you need to crack out your old Wii.
That's the
essentially.
or the Wii U, since it's not cross-platform, backwards compatible. That's the word.
That's the one, yeah. And Colm, how about you?
Oh, I've been playing Fallout 4 lately since that whole next-gen upgrade came out, just to get back into it.
You mean since you watched the TV series?
Well, also because I
finished
the TV show and named my character Lucy. And fun trivia fact, I don't know if this is like just exclusively because of the show or if it's a new feature that they've got going on. I called my character Lucy, and then after naming the character Codsworth, one of the characters in the game, said, Miss Lucy. And I was like, holy fucking shit. I was like, now if I put my name in, if I put in Colm, there's no way it would come out like
Miss
computer AI kind of like
Colm.
Like,
was Lucy one of the like default choices?
No. I had to type in her name, so I was just like, oh, that's very cool. So I was like, maybe if I was to do it again, maybe I'll put in Daniel or fucking Darren or C to test it like 7 Zs.
I think it's weird how they really thought that the show would get Fallout 76 to get a lot of players coming back, and it's Fallout 4 that got everyone back.
And New Vegas is like got a massive cult following, and like the big story behind them of like, what was it? Was it Obsidian that did that game, or was it?
Well, I'm not quite sure. That was the only one that wasn't done by Bethesda, though, right?
Yeah, so Bethesda did 3, and then they offloaded New Vegas onto it, and they had a deal. It was like if you get like 80% or more, I think that was the number, and it was like they got 79, and they're like, yeah, no bonus for you guys, like, oh, you dirty crummy bastards. And it's a great game. Like New Vegas is a really fun one.
That came out very broken though. though, didn't it?
It did, yeah.
76 or Vegas?
No, Vegas.
Vegas came
all
out real
Bethesda
broken.
games broken?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
their
I
shtick,
thought
right?
that was their brand.
And like
Yeah.
they load
Yeah.
faster now on the PS5 that it's like, I don't really mind this. You know,
But
like,
back when they came out, like
Yeah.
there were so many quests he couldn't even complete. I remember one time he went into a room and then he just couldn't leave.
it
you
just
know?
got I don't know if it's called soft locking or whatever, but you just were trapped in there. Every time you tried to leave, the game would shut down, and then you just be like, "Well, I'll
I'm
go
the
to
type
a
of
previous
player
file."
who would never allow that and would drop that game instantly if that ever happened.
It's what I did with Cyberpunk, and I still haven't gone back to it because a lot of times I was playing, not that I got like soft locked, but all the NPCs like dropping guns and taking the T-pose was the thing that was like just immediately took me out of any kind
I
of
had to stop
immersion, and
playing as
I
well.
dropped it
Yeah.
immediately, like, you know. But I
worth
should
going
have to go
back on now though. It
Yes.
has been.
I should, especially with the PlayStation Portal, being able to play it, on the move, which is my segue for today's episode, bringing a console. I hope you enjoyed that.
Very nice.
Before we get into talking about our favorite consoles, I actually had a couple of lists. I wrote down like my top 5, and I kept revising it. So before we get into our actual favorite console, I just want to hear what your guys' like honorable mention or what console was like a close second for you that didn't make the actual list, just to give me an idea maybe of what. So I can guess what your favorite one might have been. Daniel, what about you? What was your one that did not make your top, your favorite? What's your second favorite console?
Second favorite console, I have to say it would be the 3DS.
A fine choice.
Yeah. Because I think it was... So I had a bit of a break from gaming during university and stuff, and going back into it, that was the first console that I got with my first paycheck. So it holds like this special place in my heart.
Nice. Yeah. I stopped playing games a lot when I was in college. It took me out of it for a while. And when the 3DS came out, just because of that whole, oh my God, like the little...
the little 3D.
that you could turn it like lots of 3D or less 3D. And that whole thing was amazing. And the Mario 3D World, whatever their kind of the flagship game, was a phenomenal Mario game. I thought that was amazing.
There was obviously a Zelda game, because that's why I'm here, let's face it. The Zelda facts. Link Between Worlds, which was kind of a rehash of A Link in Time, which is the Super Nintendo one, I want to say.
Link Between Worlds. I think A Link to the Past.
A Link to the Past,
Yeah.
thank you, sorry. So it was kind of a rehash on it, but it had this new mechanics where Link could
Go full Egyptian.
come 2D, into the walls. And that was like a whole new way of thinking about how to solve puzzles in the game.
Not
It
only
was
that,
like,
you could get your weapons in any order you wanted, because you could
that's true,
actually
because
buy
you could buy them,
It was
or,
so
you,
cool.
or you could rent them as well from whatever his name was. So yeah, I really love that console. Yeah.
Nice. And Craig, what about you? What would have been your
I
second
never
favorite?
thought you would ask this, so I'm just like...
An honorable
completely
mention, maybe
stumped.
not your second favorite, but an honorable mention.
Geez, what would be my second favorite?
And I just love
think-
putting you on the spot, you know.
Yeah, the PlayStation 2, I think, it just had so many great games. I think that'd be my PlayStation 2. I still think Final Fantasy X, San Andreas, and Metal Gear Solid 3 are 3 of my favorite games of all time, and all 3 of them are on the PlayStation 2. So I'm just like, that is just brilliant.
Yeah, a fine one. Colm?
So second favorite. Oh, gee, I wasn't anticipating that at all. I was barely anticipating my real choice.
Maybe he won't ask me.
I don't know, maybe just for the kind of nostalgic, and when I was younger growing up, they had a lot of multiplayer games. It was like the N64, so maybe that would be my second favorite just for that. But in fairness, like Craig just said there, the PS2 had many games very much the same. Not so much multiplayer factors, but just like fucking amazing factors that like again, Tenchu Wrath of Heaven or fucking Metal Gear Solid 3.
Yeah.
Or Sons of Liberty as well. You're like,
Yeah.
fucking
Just the like lots of great series of games entered the world on the PlayStation 2.
Yeah.
My one is a handheld, not the 3DS, but the Game Boy Advance. Specifically the Game Boy Advance SP, because it was just a far superior instrument with its backlight. But yeah, I think just the collection of games on that was just phenomenally good. The Pokemon series, of course.
This is the SP. Did that have the same games as the Advance, or was
Yeah,
it?
it was-
it was just it
it's
had
the
the
same
backlight.
console,
It was
right?
the
It
exact
had the
same thing,
backlight.
except it flipped up and it had a backlight.
That was the coolest thing in the world at the time.
It was. It was
oh my god,
It
unbelievable.
was revolutionary.
And one of the other reasons I loved it was that one of the things on my list when I was coming up about talking about my favorite games was the GameCube. One of my favorite things that ever happened on the GameCube was Final Fantasy Tactics, or not Tactics, Crystal Chronicles.
It's a fucking shit game.
I loved
How
that
dare
game.
they call that Final Fantasy? I'm still upset about that.
But
That was a
weren't-
cash grab right
Weren't
there.
there chocobos? It's Final Fantasy.
Yeah, as long as the chocobos.
No turn-based combat. No,
No,
nothing.
but it was just such a I mean, I know it was a real gimmick, but the idea that it had, you'd have, and we had everything, and that was the problem. You needed to get everything, but we had all the cables, the Game Boys and the GameCube, and 4 people to play it, and we played that game through from start to finish, and it was such a wonderful time of gaming. And it was a thing where I just, like, you know, my brother's mate would go home and we'd stop playing it, and then I just unplugged my SP and just continue playing amazing Game Boy Advance games after he'd left, and I was like, God, I fucking love this thing, like, you know, so versatile. But that's not my favorite one, and we'll get on to what my favorite one is a bit. But who wants to go first with their favorite console? Colm's looking,
We should
shrugging.
have flipped a coin before this.
Oh.
Or you should have just said someone's name.
Well,
and put them
you
on
know
the
what?
spot instantly.
I rarely take. I usually pass on to someone else. So I'll go first. It'll come as no surprise that my favorite console is arguably the best console out there as well. I'm looking at Craig, ready to come in for an attack there. It is the best-selling console out there currently, as of today's date.
As
the
of
podcast.
today's date.
Yeah.
But that will soon change.
It is the PlayStation 2. PlayStation 2 was such a. I mean, I played with my brothers the Super Nintendo, even the Nintendo, although I was probably a bit too young to kind of remember really playing Nintendo games, but Super Nintendo and the PlayStation 1. I have a lot of fond memories of PlayStation 1, and Croc in particular was kind of like I was really young on my little kid game, I played Croc. But the PlayStation 2 was the kind of the first console that came into a family where we were all really at an age where we were able to play it and get our own games. And I remember the Christmas we got it was kind of like a joint Christmas present for us all, and the PlayStation 2 was there underneath the Christmas tree along with like a couple of PlayStation 2 games. It introduced me to Dynasty Warriors. We had Grand Theft Auto 3, and I don't know how that spun past my mother. Do you know what I mean? I think it was, you know, Santa. I'm going to say Santa. I'm not going to ruin Christmas for anybody on the podcast. But the fact that Grand Theft Auto, was there. This is an explicit podcast, so if there's any fucking kids who still think that Santa's real, listen to this podcast. It's, you know, you probably shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
But just in case,
just
there's
in
a
case.
7-year-old out there listening.
Yeah.
Darren's got your back.
Yeah, I got my back. So we also got like Grand Theft Auto 3 and Jack and Daxter. And I remember the first time we turned it on, and I spoke about this in the most underrated video games last week, where one of mine was Dynasty Warriors, the series, Dynasty Warriors 4 in particular, but Dynasty Warriors the series as a whole. And this was our first step into Dynasty Warriors, and the graphics, you know, step up from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 at the time was phenomenal. I go back on it now, Fog of War and everything like that, those games was a bit crazy, but like it was so good to play those games. And Jack and Daxter was the new Crash Bandicoot, the new flagship kind of character, and I love that video game as well. But the PlayStation 2 just kept giving me, on a personal note, like great game after great game after great game. I remember watching my brothers play Metal Gear Solid 1 on the PlayStation 1, and then just the wait for Sons of Liberty, and what a great game like that ended up becoming as well for the PlayStation 2. And then on top of that, then we had of course my favorite video game franchise of all time being the Kingdom Hearts franchise. And the PlayStation 2, I remember my brother handed me a video game magazine. I think it was the PlayStation magazine at the time, and it was, you know, announcing games that were coming up, and there had screenshots of Sora holding the Keyblade. I thought the Keyblade was the coolest thing ever. And then I'd grown up watching my brothers play, and then playing myself all the Final Fantasy games, and seeing this amazing crossover with Disney. That also came to PlayStation 2. My still possibly favorite video game of all time, although it's close with now Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth, Kingdom Hearts 2, is on the PlayStation 2. And I think it was a console that just, like, for its entire life cycle, like with the Switch now, I find towards the end of its days, I'm not getting a whole lot from it. And there's not kind of that many games. The PlayStation 5 I mentioned in the intro, I kind of think, as much as I was excited for its release, it's kind of a mediocre console with not a whole, like, it's got a couple of good games. Sorry if there's any background noises of of the cat screaming, by the way. I don't know what to do about him. But
He doesn't agree with you, Dan.
no, yeah, he's very disappointed in my choices. Yeah. But from the beginning to the end of the PlayStation 2 life cycle, there was always bangers, non-stop, like really good games. I'm not saying that they were like 90 out of 100 games, but just enjoyable games in the catalog. I think if you look up like the catalog of games that are available on the PlayStation 2, I don't think any other console beats it for just how many games are available for it, really.
Well, yeah, but they're cheap and easy to make, and by that point in time, Sony had was dominating the market. So I mean, there's a lot of games, but there's a lot of shit games.
Yeah, but I'd say that, and
quantity does not equate quality.
Yeah.
But I'd say across the board when you're talking about even like Nintendo games or even Xbox games or just games in general that would have been across all, you know, but across platform, there's a lot of shit games out there as well.
There are
but
lots.
but the
Absolutely.
PlayStation 2 I think has, you know, I think in my parents' house they still have a lot of like my old games kind of up, not in for show, but like in a drawer or whatever else. Anytime I open it up, I'm always just really impressed by the PlayStation 2 games I have, and I look at the PlayStation 3 games it would have had and said, a couple of them are all right, like, you know, I'm not mad about those. But I look at the PlayStation 2 and I'm always like, I really need to plug this back in and give this a shot. And at the time, we immediately, when we got the PlayStation 2, myself and my brothers invested in the multi-tap, so we could just play 4-player games. So it was a real, I know for people who would have had anything Nintendo growing up, that was always an option to have the multiplayer stuff. But the PlayStation 2 had some decent kind of multiplayer games, and it was an enjoyable thing to play in the background. My cats are currently fighting, so I'm just going to pause this for a moment while I go and deal with that.
Where you were?
Yeah, we're back in it now. Hopefully that's the end of it. Sorry about that. But yes, I was talking about how amazing the PlayStation 2 was. But I think I'm kind of there. It was just, and at a time where I was playing games the most was at the PlayStation 2 as well. But it had just my fondest memories.
Give us your top 5 PS2 games.
Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 1. Dynasty Warriors, I would say, I'd have to put in Dynasty Warriors 4.
If we hadn't spoke last week, would you have put Dynasty Warriors?
Yes, Dynasty Warriors
top
has
5?
it's and if I had Kev or Luke here on the podcast, like they'd be able to
testify to this nonsense.
Well, yeah, absolutely. No, it was a great it was a great game. And then
you said it deserved like a 6.5 or something.
No, I said it had. I think it was rated at 68, and I thought it deserved a lot more than that.
Okay.
I think, yeah. And I'd say Grand Theft Auto San Andreas has to be in there as well.
Brilliant game.
And a
Final
fifth
Fantasy
one.
10?
Final Fantasy X has to be there. Actually, yeah, you're right. That's it. There you go. There's my top 5. Yeah.
Solid choices.
In that order, I think. No, actually, no. Dynasty Warriors would be at the bottom of those 5. Final Fantasy X in 3rd and San Andreas in 4th. My top 5. Yeah. All right.
Thank you for giving that to me. I'll write that down.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to pass the book on to you, Craig. Your favorite console?
My favorite console is easy, and I guess for most people, I'm always going to assume everyone's favorite console is whatever console they had when they were between like ages 10 to 12, because generally it's kind of when you have like the most time to play video games and you're most excited about them. Despite me now, I have way more time to play video games today than I ever did back then because school was changed.
Homework, could have it.
For me, that was definitely the Nintendo 64.
Yep.
And it helped as well because I was the only one who had one, and I had a group of friends on my road who almost every day after school or on the weekends would all come over and we'd be playing in my house, in my room, and we'd all be like playing 4-player GoldenEye or Smash Brothers or whatever it was, like, you know. But all of my best childhood memories video gaming were with the Nintendo 64, and I firmly believe that if they had gone with the CDs instead of the cartridge, they would have dominated the gaming industry for years to come, and it would have been a very changed atmosphere we have now. Because Final Fantasy would have been all on Nintendo, and I think they would have buried the PS1 because people will say the PS1 is better than the N64, and only people who have the PS1 will say that. I have both, so I can say 100% that the N64 dominates the PlayStation 1, is superior in every way. Like, maybe not because it has the CD-ROM stuff, but loading times. Like, even the graphics are way better. If you play, like, Resident Evil 1 now, that thing is fucking disgusting looking. It's unplayable. It's hideous. Whereas you pick up Super Mario 64, it runs just as well as it did back then. You pick up Banjo-Kazooie, it still looks great because, like, the N64 has a style that just doesn't age the way PS1 and to a lesser extent PS2 games did. But just not off the top of my head, but I just wrote down a few games that I had that I thought were absolutely great growing up. And there was never, like you said, there was never a wait for any of these games. If at any point in time I had money, I could buy one of these games immediately because there was already a massive backlog, because you're getting like 3 or 4 great ones per month, you know, throughout the maybe 3-4 year life cycle. So ISS 98, this was even before they had Pro Evo, and it was the absolute best. ISS 98.
A football game.
A football game.
You do not strike me as a football.
Hey, this is like last from the list. Then we had Jet Force Gemini, an absolute great shooter.
Yeah.
We had the WCW series versus NWO with World Tour, with Revenge, with WrestleMania, and then WWF No Mercy was the absolute pinnacle of these games. That's 4 great wrestling games at a time when you're 10 to 12. You liked fucking wrestling back then. Like, you know?
Everybody did, yeah.
Everyone loved wrestling. You'd Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, which was like such a fast, high-speed racer. That with F-Zero, absolute, like 1,000 miles an hour is what the game said. Now, granted, I don't think that's what it was, but that's what it said on the screen. And then you'd Rogue Squadron, you'd Turok 1 and Turok 2, Dinosaur Hunter and Seeds of Evil. These great first-person shooters, much like Doom, where you throw a blade and the enemy gets ripped to pieces. It was like a darker GoldenEye. Donkey Kong 64, an absolutely great shooter and platform. You had Mario Party 1, 2, and to a lesser extent 3. You had Pokemon Snap, you had Pokemon Stadium, you had Mario Golf and Mario Tennis, back when Nintendo gave a shit about their sports games.
Yeah.
You had Mystical Ninja Goemon, which is one of the greatest intros ever. Colm will testify to this. Yeah. Mario Kart 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day, which is probably the funniest game ever made to this day. Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. I never even got to play Banjo-Tooie. For some reason, it never released in Europe. I'm still salty about that. Diddy Kong Racing, Lilac Wars, and then you have some of the greatest games ever made. Super Smash Brothers, the first.
Yeah.
That's the start of it all. We play Super Smash Brothers almost every day now, you know, for years. Like, you had Perfect Dark / GoldenEye, 2 of the greatest shooters of all time. You'll say not really because of the aiming, but back then in 1997, it wasn't about aiming. It was about strafing around corners and firing off shots as quickly as you could. What else did we have? Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time, and then Super Mario 64. I mean, those were all games that I owned. I owned all of those games. That's about 30 games there. And then there's Blast Corps, Pilot Wings, Doom, Sin and Punishment, Harvest Moon, Wave Race, Tony Hawk's, Resident Evil 2. These are all games that are great that I just didn't care about. But on most of those games that I mentioned, you could only play them on N64, and they even had that logo in the corner that had only 4, because Nintendo only make Nintendo games. You can get Resident Evil anywhere, but Nintendo is only Nintendo. And back then, they had Rare, the absolute kings of the 90s, with Banjo-Kazooie, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, all of these absolute bangers that you couldn't get anywhere else. And they made about 10, 12 games in the space of, say, 3 years. None of them bad. Blast Corps is considered their worst game, and I think it got like an 80 maybe Metacritically. But every game from then on was top notch, absolute to the bank.
Can I ask a question? Can I get your opinion on the Nintendo 64 controller?
The Nintendo 64 controller was a terrible design.
Okay.
Okay.
Just
so
we're all
it was built
agreed.
in a way that you would hold it to use as a D-pad, but to this day, I don't think there's a single game where I've ever held it on the left and on the right. It was always in the middle and on the right.
Yeah.
Always. But I think it was designed so that you would hold it left and right, and now and then you'd use the middle. But pretty much 1 year into the Nintendo 64's life cycle, it's like, okay, 3D is important. So we're going to have to use the stick more so here.
I think some of my favorite memories of the Nintendo 64 where we didn't own one, but again, my brother's friend who was the Nintendo, I always think of him in my head as like the Nintendo guy because he brought over the GameCube and Nintendo 64. I was a big fan of like, it was at a time where you could get like customizable stickers and things like that. So he had like, for a while he had his like Nintendo 64 with like a Perfect Dark skin. And then he had a Mario skin for a little while and things like that. You can get it like, and it was designed to like go around all the power button and everything like that. And he got the same for the controllers, and the Rumble Pack as well was a big deal back then because
PlayStation. That was the
PlayStation
first Rumble Pack ever, yeah. And not only that, like there was like loads of different colors you could get with the controllers. I don't think PlayStation were doing that.
No.
Like I had a green one, a black one, and like a load of different colors, and it was like really fun to use. But just the multiplayer fun on the N64 is unprecedented even today. Like couch co-op was at its best in the N64 era. Like almost every single Nintendo game was multiplayer in some capacity. Like even if it wasn't meant to, like Rare had made GoldenEye, and then Nintendo were like, no, make it multiplayer, and then they tacked it on at the end, and it was one of the greatest things ever. Yeah.
Colm, as a man who was living in the same household, would you hold some of the same thoughts on Nintendo 64?
Yeah, like as I said, they're my second favorite. Like as we were getting into the episode, I kind of mentioned N64. Most of the games Craig said there, like I absolutely totally forgot about Goemon. That's unbelievably great game. Cool things about the N64 as well was like into its life cycle. Like you would have played GoldenEye, and then Perfect Dark came out, but the graphics for Perfect Dark were too good that they had to release like with the game, or with Donkey Kong 64, they released basically this like graphic enhancer, basically RAM. They like you would insert it into your N64 and then you could play all the newer
bottom
games.
Of the controller. It came free with Turok 2, which is how I got it. But like you could also had to get that to play Perfect Dark just because it was too visually excellent.
Because that's funny because we never owned one, and I always thought so. My brother's mate who came over and brought it always played as number one, and he had the kind of see-through purple controller, and it always had this big thing plugged into the back of it, which I assumed was like the Rumble Pack, but that was a...
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, the Rumble Pack goes into the controller. The other thing, right on the front of the N64, there's this little box, and the expansion pass just slots
stuck
in
there.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about the accessories, you might be thinking about for Pokemon Stadium, you could get this amazing fucking device that basically you could play in your Game Boy game.
Yeah.
So you put in Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, whatever you had, and you put it into the Pokemon Stadium, and you could play the game on your N64 controller on the TV. And like that was the first time you could ever really connect two devices in one.
It was a means of being able to play Pokemon Red and Blue on a big screen, and I think you could speed it up and do things, but you could also go over to Pokemon Stadium, and like if you won a couple of contests, you were given like a Charmander or a Bulbasaur, and you could trade all that stuff over to your Pokemon Red, which was great back then because you didn't have the link cable with someone else.
Yeah.
But also, if you didn't have a link cable between two Game Boy Advances, you could stick your Pokemon Blue into this cartridge, put your Pokemon onto Pokemon Stadium, and then take out the cartridge, and then someone else could put in their Pokemon Red, and you could take the Pokemon. So it's like a bank, and N64 bank. So instead, and you could do multiple Pokemon quickly. So you wouldn't have to do one at a time, which would take about 5 minutes.
Were you able to do a thing where you could... So I remember, and I could be remembering this incorrectly, because again, anytime we got a lend of the Nintendo 64, the Pokemon Stadium was there. Could you do a 6v6, like your team versus someone else's team, and it would have them as 3D on the...
Yes, you could.
Oh, that was
you
so good. You
immediately loaded up your game and you saved the 6 to the Pokemon Stadium. We did it all the time.
Yeah,
and
it
just meant that like two people could like, it was like, hey, will we have a link cable fight? No, let's go back to my house. I have Pokemon Stadium. We can do it in 3D.
You can and see it in 3D. Yeah, that was so good.
Fun memory just came back to me there. When we were younger, we used to, like, me, Craig, and my cousins, we would like make gym badges, and we would like fight our strongest Pokemon against each other, and you'd have to earn your badges against people.
That's quite cool.
Like my cousin was mad for Alakazam, so he was like a kind of ghost or psychic type thing.
Yeah.
I was mad for Snorlax, who was naturally quite vulnerable to Alakazam, I think. So it was like always a tough battle. Craig, I can't remember what you
I went with Dragonite. I was
so
like, I'm going with the only dragon.
Did you design your own badge for just you, for like if you can defeat
just
me
out of
as
cardboard,
Colm?
but with like a kind of
we used
paper
cereal
clip
boxes
pin
to color
kind of
it
thing.
in and shit like that.
Oh,
Like
man,
we all had one, so we're trying
I
to beat
fucking
each
miss
other.
being a kid, you know? Jesus. Yeah, that's great.
But yeah, that's the reason the N64 is the best console.
And a fine reason as well. Yeah. I just on a note as well, I think in terms of, I don't mean to pull back to the PlayStation 2, but I can always think of, when you turn the Nintendo 64 and the kind of the opening, like the noise and the kind of the sound it made or whatever. PlayStation 2, one of my reasons for loving it is that even more so than PlayStation 1, which I know is more iconic, but that noise of when you're waiting for, like when it's zooming in for your disc or your memory card, that kind of like the...
You like that?
I love that, yeah.
But that's just, you had to listen to that every single time. And the only reason they had that is because they were trying to just entertain you for 10 seconds while this fucking thing was loading.
Loved it.
The N64 didn't have loading whatsoever. You could just hold A or press start and you were at the menu screen.
No, I just liked it. It's just a thing that reminds you of my childhood. Is there anything else you want to add on the Nintendo 64? Did you hit on all your points? I don't want to...
You were helping me out with that last one because I was going to say the loading times, but that was huge back then. Like, to not have to wait, and PS1, lesser extent PS2, but the loading times were crazy. And how dare the place Sony introduced that? Well, I guess PC maybe have done it as well, but like before that, Super Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive, we didn't have loading screens. They were just like, we want power, so we're going to add more power at the expense of time. I'm like, no, don't do that. If you hadn't have done that, we might be at the PS4 era right now, but we'd have played way more games.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we'd be waiting. No, I loved them. Daniel.
Hi.
I'm going to move on to you and check out what your favorite console of all time was.
Allow me to take you back in time, maybe 6 years before the N64.
Oh, we're going
the
back.
Super Nintendo.
Yes.
Like Craig mentioned, I think it's a lot of nostalgia factor. I'm 10, 11 years old at that time. The Super Nintendo comes out. I was so used to playing the regular Nintendo, and all of a sudden, bang, 16 bits this time.
Holy shit.
Your brain melts. Now, think of all the maybe all the classic games. You had Mario, you had your Zeldas, you had your Metroid, and then to see you had your Castlevania, and then to see everything just done so much more vividly with such a color palette. I think the first one that I've ever played was Mega Man X, arguably one of the best games that I ever made. No tutorials. There's a great YouTube essay by Ego Raptor about why this game is so good, how it teaches you how to play with no tutorials. Super Mario World, the first one where they introduced almost all what we know as Super Mario today. You had Super Metroid, which is what Metroid is today. And of course, my all-time favorite, Link to the Past.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I remember this as the height of gaming. This was something that I've never seen before. It was so amazing, it was so vivid. It drew you to play more. That's mine.
The leap from NES to Super
It was
NES was
unimaginable.
Huge. Yeah.
I remember because Mega Man is one of my favorite games of all time, and I started playing it on the NES. And then when it turned into Mega Man X for the Super Nintendo, the screens, the levels became so massive because they could do so much more. Suddenly you could, you got your dash ability, and with that dash ability, you could traverse so much of the screen. It was such a different experience, and I think that as a 10-year-old, moving from the NES to the SNES, it just blew your mind.
There's a really funny family video we have from the year we got the Super Nintendo. Now, I was kind of too young to play it, but my two brothers are playing Donkey Kong Country, the first one on it. And it's, my dad comes in with the video recorder, and my two brothers are sitting on the little kind of like kids' chairs in front of the TV, right? And my dad's like, you enjoying it, guys? And the two of them are like, dead set, looking at the screen, haven't even noticed he's come in. It's like, yeah. He zooms in close, he's like, what are you playing? Donkey Kong. But it's like enraptured by this. It's the greatest thing they've ever seen,
I think that Nintendo is so good at doing things that have never been done before. Donkey Kong Country, the original one, I think that was one of the first games that introduced that 2.5D, that it looked like there was something more to the screen. The screen kept changing, the angles kept changing. Star Fox, the original one on the SNES, first 3D in a console that didn't know what 3D was at the time. They still managed to pull 3D off. There are several games that they never spoke to me, but I'm gonna please the table here. Final Fantasy VI. I think that there are some fans here. Chrono Trigger. Square Enix and Nintendo. That was
Squaresoft back then.
Squaresoft, yeah. That was their relationship.
Do you guys ever watch I think there's a YouTube video on it where the Super Nintendo and Nintendo and Sony were teaming up at the time to come together to create a console, and the Super Nintendo / PlayStation was, and I think there's a couple of them in circulation that exist, whereby it had a cartridge slot and also a disc slot. And the controller was like a weird kind of, it looks a bit more like the PlayStation controller, but it's a weird hybrid. And I'm like, man, what would gaming be like if Sony and Nintendo were like a tag team in the gaming world today?
They were supposed to.
Yeah.
Nintendo just backed out of the deal.
Yeah,
and Sony were like, well, what are we going to do with all this shit? And they just built their own console.
Nintendo shot themselves in the foot big time there. They absolutely were like, right, we have a deal with you. And then they went off and joined with Philips, it was at the time.
Yeah, this is to do the Sega Philips or something.
Yeah, and then that fell through. Or no, they cancelled that as well. But then Sony were so outraged, they were just like, we'll make our own console with blackjack and hookers.
The kids will love this. The Super Nintendo is still... it's a pity now that this... it's great that we can play all the modern things on the Switch. Like, if you go into the Switch, you can go onto the Super Nintendo emulator and play lots of Super Nintendo games. But up until very recently, before I had the Switch, the Super Nintendo was a thing that, on a yearly basis, I would go to the attic to bring it down, dust it off, visit my friend Danny, and replay through Super Mario Brothers 3. Yearly. And it was that thing where every time we played it, I was like, this game is near perfect.
Yes, that's true. It is originally NES. They also released it to the SNES Super Mario All Star.
All Stars.
Yeah. Very
Yes,
good.
it's All Stars. The version was the one that we played. Yeah, but it was so. And it's the thing I love about the Super Nintendo is the controller, the like the color of the buttons and everything. It's just
That
so
was
much
great.
fun. It's
The
so much
annoying
fun.
thing is they chose the A button to be on the right, and now to this day with the Switch and Wii U, they
They're still-
refuse
yeah.
to bow to Xbox and Sony by putting it in the familiar place.
Yeah.
They're keeping it in the fucking top right corner. The bastards.
Classic Nintendo.
I think it shows so much that to this day, 2024, 30 years later, still the SNES games are so memorable and they influenced so many games. That's
A fine
my,
choice. And a favorite thing of mine, and I suppose I didn't really do it with the Nintendo 64. I didn't own it, but anytime you put a cartridge in and you get a white screen, just take it out, blow the cartridge. A classic. Every
The
game.
old school method of taking out a cartridge and blowing on it and then having it work inexplicably.
Yeah.
It's just great.
It's a mystery that nobody in the universe
And do
could
you know what
ever
I
solve.
To this
do
day.
you know what I love as well is that the Super Nintendo had that eject button, which actually sometimes gave me a fright because if you played it, actually shot the cartridge out of the Super Nintendo console. You're like, oh Jesus!
Toast done.
Yeah, because I think I do. I mean, of course, it'd be way too silly to have modern day consoles with these kind of like overly cumbersome methods of like putting your discs or cartridges in. But like the old Nintendo, where you actually had to open the lip, put the cartridge in, and flatten
Press
it
it down,
down, and then
yeah.
I love that.
The
There's
old
a whole ritual to the older consoles that I really really miss. Instead of just like, oh, disc in the disc tray, there you go, I'm playing my game, or just I'm going to download it digitally. There is no thing to actually switch on
Then
my
we
game.
get to play all our games quicker.
That's true. Yeah. And
There's a lot to be. I mean, as mediocre as you said the PS5 was, though, it is great for like how quickly it loads up or how quickly you can switch between games or Netflix and all those things. So like, for me, it's mostly a multimedia device
100%.
that's just used in my living room all the time just to access other things.
I mean, you could, if you remember, you could watch Netflix on the Wii U.
You can
at
watch
the time.
You can watch YouTube videos on the Wii.
And
That
you
was the
could watch
first console that had
Crunchyroll as
like
well.
you
Wow.
could use your controller to connect to the internet.
Yeah.
I remember going on the YouTube on my Wii for the first time, and loads of people were like flabbergasted. It's like, your console's connecting to the internet?
Yeah.
Holy shit! The amount of people who said that.
Does porn work?
Yeah, how much porn can I watch on this? Colm, you are the person I'm most intrigued by because in your honorable mentions, you mentioned the Nintendo 64 and the PlayStation 2, both of which I actually in my head considered would have been your favorite console of all time. So I'm quite curious, what is your favorite console?
And did you change your answer based on all three of our answers?
No, I didn't. I was going to pick this one anyway. Like, I did say before the podcast, like, I will not scoff at anybody's choice. I'll be like, that has some amazing games. I played the shit out of that. That's
So
great.
we can scoff at yours.
Well, I'd say you as well to an extent because it's probably not the best console
But no,
because
it-
it has
but
its.
I think I know which one it is.
This
but
episode's your favorite, man. Don't worry, it doesn't have to be the best.
if it is
we're
what I think
going,
it's great.
we're going with the old Xbox 360.
Brilliant choice.
Yeah, a
that's
great
my
choice.
number 2 ahead of the PlayStation 2.
Yeah, so Xbox 360, it just, like, for the time, Xbox were knocking it out of the park with that one. Like, they had so many trademark titles to their name, and, like, so what game was it now? I think Fable is the first instance I really got of it.
Gears of War, maybe?
No. Just in terms of this, but if you played an RPG and you changed your clothes, your in-game clothes would change to whatever you just equipped. And Fable was the first thing that I ever saw that in a game. I was like, this is fucking amazing. I'm going to get the big, like, knight suit of armor and walk around like a knight with a massive sword. It was like such a cool thing that the game would let you do that. You could build all your stats and stuff. So for me, like, Fable, which I think was on the original
Fable 2, that
Xbox,
was 360.
Fable 2 and 3 were on the 360, and then they re-released the original Fable onto the Fable Legends, it was called, but they brought it back onto the 360. So, like, RPG wise, like, I think they were called Lionhead Studios, and they're long gone now, but they were amazing for the time. Along with your, like, other Xbox 360 massive hits, you'd have, like, Gears of War 2, as Craig was saying there, but the multiplayer to Gears of War 2 was, like, one of the most fun things ever. Like, I'm not going to, like, say it's the same as Call of Duty Modern Warfare or Modern Warfare 2 because they were all 360 games.
Yeah, listen.
Now, they were also on the PS3.
But I mean,
fuck
it's
the PS3.
I'm not like for this whole thing. I'm not looking at exclusives. I'm like, what console meant the most to you in terms of what you could play? It doesn't have to be like an Xbox exclusive. I'm not interested in that. You know.
I think Craig went away to Wolverhampton when we were younger, and
I
stayed
specifically
home.
told you not to play my Mass Effect because I hadn't opened it yet.
Yeah, yeah, but you got me back by getting it robbed in your own house.
I was like, it's my property.
I know, yeah, but I
Someone
lost
steals
my
it.
save data because he got it robbed.
Way to go, Craig.
He not only like played it while I was gone, but when I got back, I was like, "Did you play Mass Effect?" He's like, "Yeah, clearly, yeah."
But so while he was gone, he had left loads of shit, and you couldn't bring it all back over with him. So one time he left with like the Guitar Hero fucking set, I guess. So I had 2 guitars essentially. One was like the bass and one was the guitar. So I was just like, right, fucking, I'm gonna give this a go. And I remember the addiction I had. Like I should have been doing homework and stuff like that, but no, I'm just there like fucking smoke on the wall.
Doing like that Randy
Red, yellow,
episode.
green.
Yeah.
Like
South
hands
Park.
cramping and shit, exactly
Yeah.
like the South Park episode, yeah. And then that would lead on to my later life of like pre-drinking games and stuff like that. So like the Xbox 360 had like a life cycle that led from my late childhood, like you know, you're still like late in school and whatever, and then into your early drinking years and stuff like that. So it was still a party piece. I think I had like amazing time with the 360, like working in CEX back in the day as well. You used to get to test games and consoles and make sure that they were like working before you sold them on. So the amount of times you just like throw on Dark Souls or something and just start playing that and be like, this is fucking hard. How do people like this? And then over time you get into it and you're like, this is actually really fucking good.
Yeah.
But like, as I said, like you probably all have 360 games that you are really into, but I would just say Gears of War 2, the online for that was just so fucking fun. And like little things like in-game cutscenes, the main characters all had these guns called Lancers, and it just had a chainsaw on the end of the gun. So when you used like a melee attack, literally just like chainsaw through like a gigantic alien / bug-like creature, and you know, it's just so fucking
felt
cool.
so good.
So cool.
The Xbox 360 was the first time. So myself, Kevin, Luke, as 3 mates who were like, that's who I grew up playing video games with. It's how we became friends with through video games when we first went into like, you know, primary school and you don't know anybody, and that's how we became mates. And we all of us had the PlayStation 2, I think, was the kind of the console we all shared together, and then they kind of meandered off to play Xbox. And the first Xbox came out and I was like, oh, you guys made a bad choice. And then the Xbox 360 came out and I was like, fuck, I really kind of want one of those, because Gears of War, unbelievable. Halo at the time online, Bioshock, unbelievable games at the time. Especially like the Halo Online thing blew my mind. As a kid, I was like, online gaming is the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
And the Xbox was that thing where I was like, oh, am I ever going to be able to experience this? Do I have to buy an Xbox? But yeah, 360 was, I had no real love or kind of any sort of attachment to the Xbox really growing up, but the Xbox 360 was. And Fable, like that, seeing the lads play Fable, and that being like really it's a pity that ship passed me by, because I never played through a Fable game start to finish. I never owned one. Never owned an Xbox. But seeing them play those games it just made me so jealous. It's the only console where I've sat back and said, oh, I really wish I had an Xbox 360. Like, you know, with PlayStation 5 and stuff growing up, I've never felt the need to have anything else. But when I was growing up the PS3, Xbox 360 era, I was like, I made a bad choice getting a PlayStation 3. Like,
but after that, the 360 was like the peak of Xbox. Like the Xbox One was not very good, and the current Xbox bar Game Pass itself is also not very good, even though Microsoft are buying out all the competition, like quite literally.
Yeah.
But
do you hear that, Luke? Do you?
But like you can't argue that the strength of the 360, like it surpassed the PS3, and the PS3 had games like The Last of Us, which was that's like main, like, oh well, we've got this.
Uncharted.
Like,
Well, the 360 had like a good year advantage over the PlayStation, and but during that year, everyone bought it. So by the time the PlayStation 3 even came out, and it came out at like £500 or something.
It came out. It was 800 quid
Crazy
when it first
money,
came out,
yeah.
and apparently they were still losing money on it when it first at 800 quid. It was still losing
all
money
the
on it.
Xbox PlayStations throughout time have always lost money because they're really hard to build. Nintendo are the only one who sell at a profit.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, throwing dollars about the place, Nintendo. Yeah, Xbox 360 is a fine choice. Interesting. I wouldn't have thought that of you, but yeah, that makes sense.
I'm delighted he chose that as well, because I was like, well, I want to hear the PlayStation 2 again. Darren just fucking talked about it.
Yeah.
No, if you had called out my answer, I would have just talked along. I wouldn't just be like sitting on it. It's like, what's your answer? I'm the PS2 as well. Now my turn to talk.
But the Xbox 360 was a brilliant console, and I think it did so well because it had that year of, because Nintendo were doing their own thing. They're not a threat to anyone, and the Wii was like, people were grandparents are playing that, so you don't have to worry about that type of stuff. But the PlayStation hadn't come out yet, and even by the time it did, it was like, as you said, 800 quid. Like, and already by then, like, all those games that would have been on the PlayStation were only on the Xbox. So you had like Call of Duties and the fucking BioShocks and all these games. You could only play them on the Xbox. So where are you going to play them? On the Xbox, like, and they were absolutely fantastic.
I think the only thing I was proud of to have a PlayStation 4 at the time was Metal Gear Solid 4, which wasn't a great game.
I borrowed the PlayStation 3 from my mate just so I could play Metal Gear Solid 4, and after 5 days I gave it back to him. I just cleared it, but then the very next day I went, here you go.
I don't want this hunk of junk anymore. And it was so we've talked about our favorite consoles. Can I ask a question to you guys now? Because I'm just on the PlayStation 3, because I thought the PlayStation 3, it's in its original iteration, was a gross-looking console. It didn't look good at all.
Massive.
What was your favorite console design that exists today?
The GameCube, easy.
Yeah, okay, so GameCube was kind of on my list of things that I really enjoyed.
Like, it even had a little handle at the back so you could walk around.
Yeah, I love the GameCube one. Colm, do you have a console design that you really enjoy?
Not really. I haven't really thought about it in a while. It's probably like, the weird thing is, I know what you mean. Like the original PS3 was so bulky and gross, but at the same time, I really hate those. Like, do you remember back in the day, the PS2, the really slim one, the super slim?
Yes. Yeah.
Like, it was actually called the super slim.
Yeah.
And it was just fucking.
And I felt like that thing you could almost break it in half
You
yourself.
could, definitely could.
Yeah.
It's like they're
Like
too
this tray,
flimsy.
this tray when you opened it up was like wafer thin, you know.
Wafer.
Wafer thin.
But it's funny you mentioned that. That's just one thing that annoys me with all consoles. Like, the other way, every new console has like teething issues, and then the second generation, you're like, okay, now fix them. They're like, we've just made it really slim and sexy.
Yeah.
I don't like this whole halfway PlayStation Slim type
The
thing.
pros.
Halfway through,
Yeah.
The Switch, everyone does it now.
Yeah.
Like, halfway through a cycle, you get like the actual
Switch OLEDs.
60 frames per second version of the console.
Daniel, what about you? Have you got like a favorite console design?
I mean, probably the Switch, to be honest.
Yeah.
That was so new to be able to pick it up
Yeah.
and walk along with it. I remember when I just got it, I did a really big exam and I was like, okay, I'm going to treat myself. I'm going to buy the Nintendo Switch, and with Breath of the Wild. And I actually played it not on the TV, but handheld. And there's the real start of the game when you get the Sheikah Slate, and Link holds it like this, and you're holding the Switch the exact same way. I'm like, am I Link? Is it me? Is this the Sheikah Slate? Oh my God, yes, I'm in.
I think
It's like he's holding a gun.
from a marketing perspective as well, I think the Switch was one that had amazing appeal to me. Like when they were talking about it and they had like the finger click, and then when you put the Joy-Cons in on the side and it makes that click.
Yeah.
I was watching those ads being like, I fucking need one
They
of those.
nailed it with the advertising. Yeah, they absolutely nailed it.
this
But
is
the
just-
console itself is very flimsy, and you could easily break it from the sides, and even the thing at the back that rests the Switch. I mean, you only have that
was
one
terrible,
thing.
Yeah.
You touch that in any way, and it's
And
going to
falls
fall
out.
over. Like,
Yeah.
But I still haven't broken it. So
Neither have I. I've been really delicate, but thank God I don't have like kids or like a 4-year-old brother.
It'd be hard
because then I'd be terrified for my Switch.
Yeah. I think my final question I'll ask you guys to kind of close things out is, I kind of mentioned at the start of the episode, modern day consoles. So I remember when like my excitement for the PS2, 3, 4 coming out and then getting it and it delivering. PlayStation 3 kind of not so much, but I was a young kid and I was easily entertained and pleased. I was like, yahoo, new console. But for me, the PlayStation 5 and the newest generation, as excited as I was and as long as I waited, and even the whole ordeal of having to get a PlayStation 5 with the whole COVID, the lack of consoles that were available, it was this big ordeal to get it. And I've had it for a long time, and I think it's a great console, but it's not blown me away like I wanted it to.
Yeah.
At all, and
most of the games we play are just upgrades for the PS4 version.
It's just it's just like nostalgia on steroids. Like we'll take these old games that you love and we remake them and throw them on.
But aren't they saying that like with every new console, the games take longer to make? So with each generation, you're going to get less games unless we just get way more and more companies.
It's a whole
making
production now.
Yeah.
I mean,
like you
for
could
the
make a Zelda,
AAA
like on the
games or whatever.
N64, they made a Zelda game, a top tier Zelda game in 1 year. But now Zelda games take 6 years.
And I like back in the golden era of Final Fantasy, you had 7, 8, and 9 come out year on year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, yeah, God. If
like
only
we'll never
games
have
like
that again.
No,
like,
we'll never have that again.
Unless we start making old school. Like for the remake series, I would have preferred them to keep it like OG FF7, but just have way more environments and things like that. So if we went more 2D or top down with just a kind of funky art style as opposed to big graphics and cutscenes, we could get quicker games.
Yeah.
You know, the way
And
the
I
indie
think
developers are doing it,
exactly,
but just get the AAA guys doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I think like having a massive Horizon or a big Halo coming out, here and there is great. But yeah, I think you're right. Those, to try and make every game that massive big thing, I think is probably taking away from the industry a little bit, maybe. And I love it, kind of just things to come out quicker, so I've got more things to play. And my final question, all right, we've been waiting for an announcement for the Switch 2 for such a long time. Are you guys excited for what will be the newest console on the market, the Switch 2, which is probably next year, do we think?
I
I
thought
think
they
they're going
would.
to announce
They're
it.
going to announce it this year. Yeah.
About the end of the year. It won't be at the.
Yeah.
There's a direct coming up soon, but they're not going to announce it at that. They specifically said there'll be no
Switch
details.
Oh yeah. Well, because the problem with
What are they going to announce then?
Yeah, because
Just-
they fuck all, and they're not
Yeah.
going to release
Tears
any
of
more
the Kingdom
games.
2?
In
No.
the meantime.
Sorry?
Tears of the Kingdom 2, maybe?
No
No,
way.
they-
They said that they're ditching the entire Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild stuff, and they're only focusing on the next
next new
Zelda
thing.
game, new thing. Yeah.
nice.
New Zelda.
So can I get
I'm hoping graphically it actually is a bit of a leap, because I feel at this point Nintendo, like, they make such slow strides graphically and they focus so much on gameplay, but they've kind of even now kind of peaked with some of the I can't see where they could go with Zelda if they
Yeah.
don't make it graphically better, like
Yeah.
'cause they've just got so much in there. Same with the Mario games. It's like you can add maybe extra deserts and ice areas, but
Where do you go from now? Yeah,
where do you go?
from here?
I think they have to do something drastically different, and
Mhm.
maybe just taking that extra step graphically. It doesn't even have to be as good as a PS5, but just a good bit better than what they have now, so that at the next Mario Kart goes, oh wow, look at the visuals
So
on that.
the last leaks I'd heard from it from a graphical perspective, where people were saying, because I think developers have had it in their hands to be able to see what it's capable of, and I think the rumor is that PS4 level graphics is what we'll get from the Switch 2.
That's what I heard too. yeah.
But everyone's request for Nintendo is that they sort out online. So if that was their like tag point, if that's what they opened with, you can play this and this with your friends online. Like if they put that to the forefront, I think everyone will be happy regardless of how powerful it is.
Okay. And Colm and Daniel, do you guys think that the Switch 2 is just, do we get the same thing? Is it like in a dock, out of a dock, handheld, or is it a console by itself? Have they confirmed it's called the Switch 2?
Nope.
They haven't confirmed it, but at
They
this
haven't
point, like
confirmed anything.
even all the Nintendo companies that used to make console games and handheld games, they've all merged now. So they have no choice but to do this type of they can't go back to a Game Boy and a Nintendo. There has to be just one now.
But
going forward.
yeah. So do we? So we don't know if it's called the Switch 2, but do you guys think they go for a new console?
It will be a console or a handheld hybrid for sure. Not necessarily a Switch 2, but it will be functioning.
I think Nintendo always likes to do kind of new things and push it forward. With the Wii, think about it. Like the Wii came out a year later. You had the Kinect. You had the PlayStation things that you moved
iToy
as well.
Yeah.
What was it?
iToy was for
iToy. There you
That
go.
was fun.
What a terrible name.
And then you had the Wii U, and everybody was starting to copy that. And with a Switch, now you have the Portal. I think that they always come up with these weird ideas, and then everybody's like, yeah, this is kind of cool.
This works.
We should probably do that too. So I don't know. I always have this spot in my heart for Nintendo, and I think they're going to just do something completely left field. Either they're going to manage it perfectly or crash and burn. I don't know.
They haven't
But
crashed
it's
and burned
going
in a
to-
while, though.
Well, I
think.
don't know, because
so
a lot of people
they're due.
a lot of people say the GameCube crashed and burned and the Wii U crashed and burned. So it's been hit, miss.
So are we on the miss cycle
So-
now? Oh.
In terms of history, Nintendo are destined to fuck up the next console, but you'd think that they've learned a few things.
Really?
And-
Would you?
No, I honestly think they will fuck it up.
We'll wait and see. Colm, a finishing thought from you. Switch 2 or the new Nintendo console comes out. What game that Nintendo hasn't revisited in a long time would you love to see?
Oh, interesting. Blah, 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 blah. I was thinking of, for some reason, like a Zelda game, but they've obviously released so many of them lately. And then I thought back to one of the episodes we did a while ago, and that would be like a more fleshed out character development for Captain Falcon. Not necessarily
I
just
remember that. Yeah, you
F-Zero
said that.
X, but like for him to have more of just being a Smash character.
Yeah.
So you want similar to GX on the GameCube, more
Yeah,
of a
but
story
even
focus.
that didn't go far enough.
Yeah,
That-
it didn't. It was
yeah.
just a bunch of races
But,
with
like,
some dialogue.
if you could get into bar brawls, or you're a mercenary / race car driver, they don't have to do anything too fucking fancy.
It'd be
but-
quite cool, wouldn't it, to have like a I wouldn't say not like an open world, but like the way they did the old Need for Speeds games where you had like a kind of a city that you were in, and you'd go to different drag races and things like that. If you had a cool like F-Zero style dark undergroundy kind of racing,
customize
like
your
that.
cars and
yeah,
shit like that,
that'd be great. Like yeah.
I think just like the previous console, well, you had your obligatory Mario game, Odyssey, and then your obligatory Zelda. I think this time around it's going to be a Metroid, because 4 never materialized.
Yeah.
Which
they
I
gave you
didn't like
Dread.
the look of.
It was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But they promised something else.
Would you reckon that'll be the launch game for the Switch 2 will be the Metroid? That'll also come out for the Switch at the same time, like every console does on day one.
Just Breath of the Wild kind of situation. Yeah. I think that's why they held Metroid 4 for so long, because they had some idea in their mind. I think they had some idea in their mind that the Switch just couldn't handle. So they decided to just push it until a new console would come up.
But that would imply then that it won't be out for the original Switch.
I don't know.
I'd like it not, because if it comes out for both Switch and Switch 2, that means graphically there can't be much
and
of a
I think
difference.
I appreciate that. I mean, for them it's a good business idea, of course, to do that with any console. Any company should do that from a business perspective because you sell more games. But I think the PlayStation 5 really lost a good head start on getting onto the next generation, because so many games were available PS4, PS5. It wasn't until we got the DLC for Horizon Forbidden West that we actually saw what a PS5 on its own was capable of, because the DLC was only PS5. So if the Switch 2 comes out, I would like it to be backwards compatible. I don't know if Nintendo would do that, but I'd like it to be backwards.
They will.
They should. I think it'd be a really good for the consumer. But I'd like it that if all of their new games coming out were specifically Switch 2 or whatever they're going to call it, to really get a head start on this is what the new system is. You know, it'd be great. Well, gentlemen, it's been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been great.
Thank you so much to our listeners. If we've missed out on any ideal consoles that you think we're crazy for not selecting as our favorite, let us know at thegiftofgamingpodcast@gmail.com. Myself and the guys will be popping onto a post show shortly where I will be meshing two kinds of games, seeing if the guys can guess which games I'm meshing together, and if they think it's a good idea that I've meshed these two games together. And if you want to check that out, you need to go to patreon.com/thegiftofgaming for a boatload of bonus content. There's so much stuff there, and it's only the cost of a coffee a month, and it helps us out. That'd be great. Daniel, Craig, Colm, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much.
No, you have been fantastic.
He's been okay.
he's just average. And to our listeners, as always and forever, keep enjoying the gift that is gaming. Peace out.
Bye.